Is AEW forcing an agenda to change people's beliefs? Well, according to some critics of AEW, that seems to be the case, but Sonny Kiss actually responded to this particular criticism. So let's go check it out. Sup y'all, welcome back to the review space, and I'm just reading this article right now. Man, I'm not surprised. This happened. This particular finally came to this point where Sonny Kiss is addressing and responding to criticism that AEW, All Elite Wrestling, is supposedly forcing an agenda to change people's beliefs. I'm not surprised by that. There's been a lot of people voicing their opinion against, including LGBT characters, LGBTQ, and characters that's not necessarily, straight individuals, people that are not considered 100%. What is it, cisgender, whatever you want to call it? Somebody who's a little bit different. Somebody who's got a different sexuality. And this article is on WrestlingInc.com right now. I'm reading it. Listen, I'm not even surprised. This is something that you could have seen coming from a mile away. And I'm glad that Sonny Kiss is able to actually address it because, listen, I was critical of this. I mean, I already mentioned before, it's one of the main reasons I thought in that video that I made, top 10 reasons why AEW will ultimately fail against the WWE. And I listed one of the reasons, I think, in there is that, they're going to cater too much to the SJW type crowd. They're going to cater too much to that social justice warrior, SJW, that inclusion crowd, but they're doing it in a way that's like, hey, look at us. They're virtue signaling. Like, look at all the different people that we're hiring. It's full of diversity. But the way that they do it is, it feels like, it seems like they are pushing a message. There's a message in there. Now, I don't think that the message revolves around forcing people to change their beliefs. I mean, I don't think that's the case at all. I don't agree with that in any way, shape, or form, that AEW is trying to change people's beliefs, but I do think that they're being as inclusive as possible. But my main criticism regarding that, in that video, is that, hey, listen, I mean, you can have all these different characters, but at the end of the day, forget political correctness. Forget the PC thing. Forget the PC way of thinking. You gotta be anti-PC or anti-SJW. And not go out of your way to do it, but just have that freedom. Be free when you're writing something, when you're writing a show, when you're writing a script, when you're writing and portraying these characters, make them entertaining first. Just like the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era in the late 90s, the Monday Night Wars, especially WWF back in the day, was very politically incorrect. They would make fun of people, different ethnicities and nationalities. They would have stereotypes. They would make fun of women. They would make fun of, maybe somebody who's not straight. They would make fun of LGBTQ people back in the day. Somebody like a Goldust, or, somebody like, even Val Venus making all kinds of innuendo jokes. It was really funny back then, It was incredibly entertaining. That's what I want AEW to do, because they're not WWE. They have to set themselves apart. They have to come across as a very edgy product that is very, very, very risque, and comes across as, hey, they're trying something new, or they're not afraid to go beyond a certain, certain line. They're not afraid to cross the line, and they're not afraid to write characters that might be considered offensive to some people, but just have it entertain, have it be funny. Just like, some stand-up comedians are really funny and edgy. I remember, I used to love Louis C.K. back in the day, and I still kind of like him, but he was great back in 2008, around that time, a little over 10 years ago when he started to really get famous, and he was funny. His stand-up routines and his specials were incredibly hilarious because, Louis C.K., he wasn't afraid to be politically incorrect. He wasn't afraid to say certain words that are probably considered like super offensive now. And even back then, but it was incredibly hilarious. Guys like Chris Rock in his prime, guys like Dave Chappelle in his prime, and all the way up and down the line, you see the greatest stand-up comedians. Guys like Patrice O'Neal or Dave Attell. They were very funny, they were very entertaining, and they weren't afraid to cross the line. That's the big point that I was trying to make. Now, Sonny Kiss, the way that he addressed this is that when he spoke up when he spoke with Wrestling Inc., he talked about the gimmicks and what separates it from similar gimmicks. He talked about his gimmick. A lot of people compare me to super awesome, great flamboyant wrestlers. Goldust, Rico, and Velveteen Dream. Of course I did that too. I compared him to, he's like the real life Velveteen Dream. But little do they know, I'm actually the authentic version of those feminine characters. Exactly, that's what I said. They do a great job of it, and I love them all, but at the same time, Sonny Kiss is authentic. Yes, I don't think anybody's denying that he's not LGBTQ, that he doesn't represent that, and he doesn't actually live that life. I think he is a genuinely, he's not, he's genuinely part of the LGBTQ, gender or whatever. I'm just a guy who is feminine. Obviously, it's very apparent, but at the same time, I'm just a wrestler, and I am not a gimmick. I'm just this flamboyant, athletic, flippin' dude or dudette, however you want to see it. Because I'm very ambiguous with my sexuality and gender. I call myself a male, but I identify as gender neutral to the public. And Kiss went on to say that people are allowed to use both the he and she pronouns when describing him. With the signings of Kiss and transgender wrestler Nyla Rose, Kiss discussed AEW creating an inclusive and diverse roster. People think that they are just hiring people due to their sexuality, and that's not what they are doing. Yeah, I don't think that's the case either. Again, they're trying to make a statement in that, hey, we're being very inclusive. We are trying to include as many different people. Stated Kiss, they are hiring authentic people. Trans, homosexuals as myself, they are hiring people like that to give representation for really good wrestlers and people who don't have that when they look on TV. People can look on TV and see Nyla and myself and say, oh my god, that's someone like me, but not a gimmick. Kiss also pushed back on claims that AEW has some sort of agenda and they are looking to change people's beliefs. So this is the part where it gets kind of controversial. I think that's what AEW is trying to do and not push some agenda. I know some people are thinking that, and it's really ridiculous. Let me also make a disclaimer that AEW or myself or Nyla is not trying to change anyone's idea or viewpoint of how life should be for them. We're not trying to push anything down anybody's throat. We're just giving people who don't have representation a role model and someone to look up to, said Kiss. We just want to coexist comfortably, and what that means is that I don't want to change your viewpoint. I just want you to respect me the same way that you would want me to respect your opinion. Kiss also said that fans don't have to watch if they don't want to, or expose it to their children if they don't feel comfortable having discussions about those kinds of characters. Definitely. And so the interview goes on. This article is actually pretty long. You guys should check it out. Check it out on WrestlingInc.com. It's actually pretty long. But that's basically the general idea of it, is that basically just making a statement that this is not an agenda to try to change anybody. I never got that idea either. I think the people are uncomfortable because some people are just anti-LGBTQ to begin with. They're some people are homophobic. Some people don't like the transgender thing. They don't like it when they see it on TV. Some people have religious beliefs, and that goes against their beliefs. So some people are they got a closed-minded mentality about it. They come from a culture or a belief system that they are not in favor of showing somebody who isn't straight because of whatever reason they have, whether it's religious or just a restrictive conservative viewpoint, or just something that they are not, that makes them feel uncomfortable. Because let's face it, gay people and all that, and trans people, they've been portrayed relatively negatively and like as bad, just a bad stereotypes over the years. Since I could remember, especially growing up in the 90s. Again, going back to the Attitude Era. It was funny back then, and none of us were homophobic per se. We would always make gay jokes back in the 90s. We'd make fun of the stereotypes, and we'd say certain words that are considered probably really, really homophobic or really offensive now. The F word, FAG, and all that. We would let loose with that word every time, and not even necessarily against gay people or LGBT. It's like it became a thing against people that were just annoying. Like, the Backstreet Boys, what a bunch of, an FAGS, and that became a big popular thing. It was just a part of the the language. It became part of the slang that we used back in the day. And it's still to this day, people from my generation and a little bit older, that grew up in the 70s and the 80s and all that, that was just a term that was really popular. It was very common to speak like that. Yeah, and I think it's cool that times changed to the point that it's like now, in the 2010s, LGBT have become a lot more visible, and they become a lot more accepted in the mainstream, and they are slowly becoming more integrated in the mainstream. It's not so shocking or so, I guess, disgusting. Some people have that disgust. I think when people get used to it and they start seeing that these are regular people, these are normal human beings that just live in their lives. Yeah, they're not necessarily considered straight, but it's like, so what? What's the big deal? What's the problem? If they can wrestle, if they got some talent, somebody like a Sonny Kiss or a Nyla Rose or whoever, if they have talent and they have charisma, give them a chance. I mean, why not? I mean, I don't think it's a problem. And again, these are authentic individuals. Sonny Kiss is a real life Velveteen Dream. It's not a gimmick. It's a part of the character. It's a part of this persona, the costume and all that. But like, this is a legitimate extension of the character. What I get from Velveteen Dream is that Velveteen comes across as I think he's a straight dude, but his gimmick is very flamboyant. It's very like a Prince inspired, very kind of effeminate, or kind of a little bit more on the maybe, like, is he maybe kind of a homosexual? Maybe he is, kind of thing. It's a little bit ambiguous, and it's a little bit almost like a Goldust thing where it's just a gimmick. I mean, as long as it's entertaining, as long as they can pull. If Velveteen is really talented. Goldust was portrayed by a talented guy, Dustin. So these characters were portrayed perfectly by the individual, and I think that Sonny Kiss is the real dude, the real person. This is not necessarily a gimmick. So we'll see if Sonny Kiss can sink or swim in the AEW roster. If we see some charisma, personality, in-ring ability, etc., that make Sonny Kiss a worthy individual on the roster, somebody that can go in the ring, somebody that can have that value in the ring. It's cool to have that inclusiveness, no doubt about it. I mean, I'm cool with it. I think it's fine. I would personally be cool with I would want them to have some transgendered, really effeminate looking chick, somebody that looked like Bailey J. I don't know if anybody have ever heard of Bailey J, but yeah, Bailey J is basically a triple X rated performer. Yeah, somebody like that who looks exactly like a female in the face, very effeminate look, very feminine. Like, damn, is that a girl? Like, looks exactly like a girl, but it's actually a transgendered individual. Somebody like who's that younger chick on YouTube? I just forget that Jazz Jennings. That's a perfect example of a really effeminate, like, I guess boy, person that's born as a boy, as a male, but became a transgender, is very feminine looking, long hair, very girly looking face. If you're walking down the street and you saw this individual, you'd be like, oh my god, that's a really cute girl. You know what I mean? But it turns out it's actually a transgendered person. I think that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, in terms of having that feminine look. If anything, I think that's kind of it's kind of cool. Like, whoa, that's a hot chick, but it's actually born as a boy. Like, that person was born as a male. So it's kind of a surprising thing. It's like, damn, I had no idea that males could be extremely feminine too. So I don't know. I think I'm a lot more attracted to that as opposed to the Sonny Kiss thing, where Sonny Kiss looks very much like a male. Like, that's a dude. It's a dude, but wearing effeminate clothing or whatever, and just acting like a girl. That's a little bit different. I know there's different kinds of LGBT type individuals, but the one that I would prefer, if they did have, I guess transgendered or whatever type people, it would be that super feminine, super looks like a woman on the surface, looks very much exactly like a female on the surface, but it's like it's a trans individual. It's like, okay, you fooled me. That's crazy, I'd be that's the kind that I'm looking for if they do if they would be open to including a transgendered character. Like Nyla Rose to me is not exactly kind of an overweight individual, not exactly the most attractive individual. So Nyla Rose is more of like a bruiser, powerhouse looking type. So she's gonna fill that like I guess Aja Kong role or Awesome Kong role or something like that. But I'm looking for like a really really feminine, like damn that's a hot chick, but it's like oh it's a transgendered, like that's crazy. I think that's a lot more. I don't know. I'm more, very aesthetic based in my preferences anyway. Like man, that looks like a hot chick. So I think that would get people's attention. Like again like a Jazz Jennings type, like a Bailey J type. There's very few. I've seen very 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 few. It's not like there's so many out there. Like super feminine looking transgendered individual. Like it's not very common. So that's why it's like I guess it's really hard to find, especially in wrestling. I can't imagine that in pro wrestling there's so many different individuals to pick from. So that's it. That's my opinion about this AEW supposed agenda. I don't think they have an agenda, and I think Sonny Kiss is right in defending AEW. And it's true that you don't have to watch it. You don't really have to. But I think that it is cool to have that representation. It doesn't bother me. You know what I'm saying? As long as you make the product entertaining, that's it. Have funny jokes, have great funny segments and memorable segments and charismatic characters and funny promos and, just make it fun. Make the product fun. That's the number one goal. And it doesn't matter who you offend. Like, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter. That's it for this episode of the Review Space. Check out the channel for more wrestling-related videos and topics. Subscribe, click on the bell button for the latest notifications, and until next time, peace.